Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello everyone and welcome to your English class. In our lesson today, we'll continue with our second unit. The lesson today is the first part from the writing lesson in your books, page 28 and 29. All you need for the lesson today is your books, page 28 and 29, a sheet of paper and a pen to take down your notes. So let's get started. We're all done from the reading lesson, and you had a homework in your books, page 95. This exercise I. Study the picture and write words under each heading in the chart. Write sentences about what happened before the picture was taken and what probably happened afterwards. The first thing that you're doing in here, you will study the picture. When you're studying it, you are looking into the picture and try to come up with words related to the picture. What do we have in here? We're having here a fireman here trying to put out the fire. The house is burning. Let's think about what had happened before the fireman came in. Before the fire, what do you think had happened? Maybe we had smoke and explosion. Something exploded, then we had the smoke. It could be anything. How about during now? The fire is on. So we will say that we will have flames. You will see the flame, not the smoke, as well as we're having the building. What's wrong with the building? It is burning. You will see the fire all everywhere. Afterwards, after we have stopped the fire, put out the fire, the firemen came in and they put out the fire. They stopped it. Put out. And also, by the very end, they will check for live ashes. Anything that is okay. Maybe your books, the house itself, the furniture, or people who are alive. Okay. Here, write sentences about what happened before the picture was taken and what probably had happened afterwards. So, let's come up with sentences. For speculation, we can say, the fire must have started in the kitchen. I am trying to speculate. I have the fire. My guess, it must have started at the kitchen or in the kitchen. The house had been evacuated when the firefighters arrived. People were evacuated outside the house, then we're having the firefighters arrived. When they arrived, people had been evacuated. Also, we can say the house will probably be torn down. Maybe I am expecting that it will be torn down. No one can use it anymore. You can come up with any sentence based on your speculation what had happened before or what happened during the action. Okay, let's continue in here. For our lesson today, by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to identify descriptive writing. Also, you will be able to take notes on a written letter. And also, you will be able to analyze a descriptive article. So all you're doing in here, we're going to analyze and take notes. Let's get started. Let me ask you this question. What signs of technology can you see around you? All around us. What signs of technology do we have? Do you see around you in the room? Do you have a TV? This is one sign of technology. Do you have a radio? Computer? Your phone itself? This is one sign of technology. So speaking about technology, anything that is around you, we can call it a sign of technology. Okay. How many remote controls do you have at home? You, yourself. How many remote controls do you have? What kind of devices are there? Are they used for? We're having many types of remote controls around us in the house. Do you use them for TV? Yes, we use them. We use them also for the air conditioners, as well as we use them for the TV, the air conditioner, even the consoles that we're using, some of them are wireless. I am using a pointer, which is a kind of a remote control. Wireless, no wires within them. How many do you have in your house? Do you have one or more than one? Think about it. Okay, so now you're going to listen while you're reading the article, and you will come up with the main idea. What is the main idea of this article? Let's listen together.
We tend to think of remote controls as new devices. However, what we now take for granted at home or at work has been developed over a very long time. One of the earliest examples of remote control was developed in 1898 by Nikola Tesla, who demonstrated a radio-controlled boat to the public during an electrical exhibition at Madison Square Garden. In 1903, Leonardo Torres Quevedo presented the Telekino at the Paris Academy of Science. It consisted of a robot that executed commands transmitted by electromagnetic waves and was a pioneer in the field of remote control. The first remote-controlled model airplane flew in 1932, and by the late 1930s, several radio manufacturers offered remote controls for some of their more exclusive models. The first television remote control was developed in 1950. It was called Lazy Bones, and was connected to the television set by a wire. A wireless and then an ultrasound remote control were developed in the mid-50s, but neither was reliable. More sophisticated television remote controls were introduced in the late 70s, but they had a limited number of functions, sometimes as few as 3: next channel, previous channel, and volume off. Remote controls, with a wider range of functions, were finally launched in the 80s and became an immediate success. For the first time, viewers no longer watched programs just because they did not want to get up to change the channel. They could also channel surf during commercials, or turn the sound off. By the early 2000s, the number of remote controls increased along with the number of electronic devices. Consumers needed a remote for each device. This led to the development of universal remote controls that can be used with different devices. Imagine controlling everything around you with the touch of a button on one single remote control. Is it wonderful or scary?
Okay, so what is the article about? The whole thing that you have heard and read, what is it about? It's actually about remote controls. The evolution, the development of remote controls since the past until the present day. So we are tracing back the history of remote controls, how it started and how it is today. Because we're speaking about the idea of tracing back, this is the timeline that you are about to come up with. Take a minute, scan the whole text again, and highlight, underline, or circle the dates that we've got in here. And you are supposed to come up what happened in each specific year or time. Let's start with the first one, which is in the 1898. What happened? In 1898, radio-controlled boat. We started with a radio-controlled boat. 1903, what happened? Telekino. It's a robot that executed commands transmitted by electromagnetic waves. So this is the development that happened. 1932, here, the first flying remote-controlled model airplane. So now we're not using a robot, now it is an airplane. In the 1930s, we've got a radio manufacturers offered remote controls for some of their more exclusive models. So it's not for everything, just for their models. In 1950, we're having the first television remote control, which was called the Lazy Bones. You notice that we had all this time, we started with the remote control, then until the 1950, it started working with televisions or TVs. Then in the mid-50s, maybe 1955, 1956, we've got the wireless and then the ultrasound remote controls. So before that, we have the wired ones. So you have to be very close to the TV or to the device. Then the late 70s, we've got more sophisticated TV remote controls. What do we mean by the idea of sophisticated? It's not only basic, it had many functions. It's not only to turn on and off. No, now you can surf, you can surf through the channels, volume up and volume down. So many functions, not only one or two functions. Then in the 80s, we're having television remote controls with wider range of functions. We don't have limited ones, more sophisticated. You can do whatever comes to your mind. And we have many buttons within the remote control. And in the early 2000s, what happened? In here, we have the universal remote controls, which made our lives easier. I have only one remote control that can control many devices. The air conditioner, the TV, the robot, it can control everything. You notice the evolution? We started in the 1898 until the 2000, and we can compare the radio-controlled boat to the universal remote control. This is the idea of evolution, development. It is getting better and it is making our lives easier. Okay, let's get into here, and we're speaking about here. On page 28, we're having you are supposed to read the article and identify the different stages that the remote control went through. And here we're having the chart. It asks you here to come up with the year. Then, who are the people involved? We don't always have someone, and main characteristics and the functions. So what happened in this day? And then what happened then later and later on. At the beginning, we can start with 1898. Nikola Tesla, and the main characteristics of his invention or his development, the remote control of movement, and functions as radio-controlled boat. So, in this time, that person, what he does. Then, we're having the following, which is in 1903, we're having Leonardo Torres, and the main characteristics was he transmitted commands to the robot by electromagnetic waves. What are the functions? They are the Telekino robot executed commands transmitted by the electromagnetic waves. So this is what happened. Then we're having the following. In 1932, we're having what happened? We've got a remote control for the flew remote controlled model airplanes that fly using a remote control. In the late 1930s, we're having radio remote controls. So we're not using wires, we're using radio waves. It changes the stations, frequencies, and regular volume. So we're having a bit more advanced. Then in the 1950s, we're having the main characteristics of the remote connected to the television set by wire. So we have just started using them for TVs. However, they are wired. So the function is, it is a television remote control. And in the mid-50s, with having the radio remote control, it changes channel, frequencies, regulate volume. So we're having these three functions, maybe less or these three. Then in the late 70s, we're having more sophisticated television remote controls, more complicated, more advanced. However, they are limited only to the functions which are next or previous channel and volume on or off. Then in the 80s, we're having wider range of functions, more functions, not only the next and previous. So we're having wider range of functions, channel surfing and muting. Now you can do whatever you want using a remote control for the TV. Then it is followed by the early 2000s. Now we're having the easiest, which is the universal remote controls. What can we use it for? Can be used with different devices. So one remote control that can control every other device. Okay. Now, did you find any information in the article that you feel that that is new for you? From the whole text, anything that is new, something that you feel that it is surprising, it was a bit surprising for you. For me, when I read the article, I found out that remote controls are, it isn't a new invention. I thought that it is something that is new. I didn't know that it started in the 19th century. Also, something surprising for me that the TV remote controls used to be wired. I thought that they are, since the beginning, they are wireless. However, it was surprising for me that it was wired in the past. Okay, now the following on page 28, read the article again and decide what the focus or the topic of each paragraph is. So you will decide what is the main idea of each paragraph. Let's look into the first one in here, the first paragraph. The main idea in here is an introduction to the article or the article theme of the remote control. So we are introducing, introduction. The following paragraph in here, starting from one of the earliest examples until the end of this paragraph, this one gives you an early examples of remote control, regardless of how many earliest examples. The robot, the airplane, and the radio ones. Then, the following, the first television remote control. Here is what is the focus. Here, early television remote controls. Or you can tell the first television remote control. So we have started with the idea relating the television with remote control. Then, more sophisticated in here, we've got the idea in here, more sophisticated remote controls, 70s and onward, what happened after the 70s. Followed by the early 2000s, here, developments in the 2000s, universal remote controls. You can choose one of them or both of them are the main idea. Okay, you will read the last lines of the article. What do you think? Is it wonderful or scary? Imagine controlling everything around you with the touch of a button on one of the one single remote control. Do you think it's wonderful or scary? What do you think? If we can control everything around us with one remote control, do you think it's a wonderful thing? Yes, I believe it's wonderful. How about scary? Maybe you will tell no, I believe that it's scary. You never know what people can do with these remote controls. And they will say, I totally agree with you. So think about it. Do you think it's wonderful or it is scary? For your homework, write an outline of a descriptive writing. For the following lesson, we're going to write our descriptive writing. You will start writing your own outline for a descriptive writing. Okay? I guess that is it for the lesson today. And thank you so much for your time.